You can eat healthy all day, avoid all the sugar and the things you think you shouldn't eat, and even manage to control your emotional or stress eating throughout the day quite well. But then as soon as the sun goes down, the kids are in bed, or the clock hits a certain PM, it's like your signal to eat, and you find yourself overeating late at night. So what's it about nighttime that makes it harder for us to resist our eating? And how can we set up our time after dinner so that it's easier for us to stop doing it? You might think that there are many different reasons for your late night stress eating and why you keep doing it and can't stop it, or you might not be aware of any reason at all. But the fact is that all of those reasons are driven by the same impulse of your mind-body system, which is to restore equilibrium. And there are three kinds of those impulses that you need to be aware of and understand in order to break free from the late night stress eating in the long term. And it might seem that if all those three impulses come together, that if you have created like a giant monster, the late night eating monster, that seems impossible to overcome. But it's not, because the solution lies in understanding and identifying those impulses rather than working against them, working with them. The first impulse is the impulse to restore energy and nutrient equilibrium. This happens when you skip breakfast, you work through lunch, and you don't meet your body's need for calories and for nutrients to function properly. And in that way, you push your mind-body system far out of the energy and nutrient equilibrium. And at night, when you experience this intense hunger, intense cravings, it's because of this impulse to restore energy and nutrient equilibrium. So in order to address and resolve that, make sure that you eat regularly throughout the day and make it really a priority to eat, to sit down and eat for lunch, to sit down and eat something for breakfast. And make sure that what you eat is something that provides you with sufficient nutrients so that your body can function properly. And if you do it right, you will find that your body will already be in energy and nutrient equilibrium when it comes nighttime. And you will no longer feel those intense cravings and hunger, which will make it hard to resist stress eating at night. Then there is the impulse to restore emotional equilibrium that drives your emotional eating, which means it's the impulse to restore a sense of safety when you're anxious, to restore a sense of calm when you're stressed, restore a sense of connection when you feel lonely, restore a sense of engagement when you're bored. And so far, your proven way of restoring the emotional equilibrium has been food. Now you need to find a new way to restore that emotional equilibrium other than food if you feel that it's affecting your health in a negative way. So one way to think about it is to resolve the causes of these different uncomfortable emotions so you don't have to deal with the effects of them. So for example, it means to avoid getting stressed in the first place by eliminating situations, people that you know trigger the stress response inside you, or interpret those situations in a different form so that they're no longer cause you to be stressed in the first place. But if you do get stressed, find or test other ways to restore that sense of calmness without using food. Maybe it's something like taking a bath, it's like doing a little exercise, it's like drinking a cup of tea, or whatever it is for you. Maybe it's just sitting there and observing the stress inside you and so on, and then it will naturally dissolve. Or preventing yourself from getting anxious about like what might happen in the future, what might happen tomorrow, the deadlines you have to meet tomorrow, what the clients want from you tomorrow, and so on. And then you just like maybe focusing on the present, on this moment, and what you're experiencing right now will reduce the intensity of the anxious thinking, and you will resolve it that way. That can work. Or if you feel lonely, and then it helps to realize that the feeling of loneliness doesn't come so much from being alone. It comes more from the sense of feeling separate. For example, you may have experienced that even when you are around people and are surrounded by people, that you can feel lonely when you feel separate, or when you feel like nobody cares. And given the fact that the feeling of loneliness is not so much caused by the situation itself, but more by the interpretation of what you think being alone means, that it means that nobody cares, that it means that you're separate, abandoned, and then trying to interpret it in a different way, like, yes, it's great that I'm alone because it gives me the chance to finally take care of myself, and that other people don't pay attention to me means that they give me the opportunity to give myself attention, to take care of myself. And then you may find that you can resolve the loneliness that way. And if you feel bored, it's usually because your brain is used to a lot of stimulation throughout the day. And the only way to like get out of this state of constant boredom at night, when nothing exciting is happening or interesting is happening, is to train your brain to be satisfied with less stimulation, like to remove potential sources that drive your brain's need for stimulation up. For example, to reduce your exposure to social media, to the news, to remove apps from your phone, to switch off notifications so that your brain doesn't expect constant stimulation all the time. And then after a while, you might find that your brain is satisfied with less and less stimulation, and the boredom naturally fades away, and will end up being happy even when you have nothing to do, when there is nothing interesting happening in your life. So this is a way to deal with this and to restore a sense of emotional equilibrium without using food. And finally, there's the impulse to restore behavioral equilibrium in anticipation for a reward. For example, you might find that the fact that it's 10 o'clock triggers an anticipation in you to expect some certain food as a reward, or that watching a movie triggers the anticipation for a reward, and it triggers the impulse for a behavior to obtain that reward, certain food. Or a comment from someone, or a commercial that triggers this impulse to behave in a way to obtain a reward in the form of certain food. So somehow there are like triggers in your environment, and when they appear in your sensory experience, then it triggers an automatic response mechanism inside you that wants you to behave in a way to consume a certain food as a reward. And the only way to deal with this is to either like eliminate those triggers from your life, so you're no longer triggered in the first place, or to train yourself to not be triggered by the fact that it's 10 o'clock. And the way to do this is to just like sit with this anticipation for a reward without satisfying it. And the more you do that, the more you realize the less intense this anticipation gets, and the much easier it's going to become to control. And over time, it will completely fade away because this automatic response is no longer activated and no longer acted out. And the impulse to restore behavioral equilibrium will become less and less intense and more easy to handle. I know it can be quite overwhelming at times when you have all these different impulses working against you. And it can be quite frustrating and disappointing when you've been trying so hard to get over something, but each day you have to start from zero and nothing seems to work. And whenever you face this situation, it may be time to change something about your approach that's fundamentally different. For example, to instead of trying to fight the impulses, trying to use them to your advantage. And that's what I've been trying to convey to you in this video. But if you want more personal support with this, I suggest you join my free Facebook group called The Liberated Eater, where I host trainings to go more in detail into your specific situation. All you have to do is click the link below this video or somewhere around this video and join. It's free. I'd love to see you in there.